This morning inside your spotlight, and now we give you some dry season bushfire prevention tips with the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service in the form of Fire Prevention Officer Jude Rogers. Good morning to you.
Pleasant good morning to you, Ruckus, and your
back.
listeners. Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
It's a pleasure to be back.
So it's a very interesting dry season.
Very.
Because it's wet outside right now.
Yes, definitely.
So we're grateful for that.
Yes.
Because that means less bushfires, at least today. But, I mean, you were telling me off air that you guys all sit on, so as fire officers, WASA, the Met Office, everybody sits on this one symposium that you all share information to be able to be best prepared.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the preparation that takes place as we get into the dry season.
But first and foremost, we have to give kudos to the TTMS, Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service, for actually putting on this symposium where they share the predictions models that they have for the year coming. And so what that allows us to do in the fire service, and probably even WASA, is to prepare our resources and to know how to allocate resources. You'll know if there's scarcity in terms of rainfall, which will bring hotter spells, having dry spells, and those spells now we have to prepare for them because obviously the vegetation is going to dry very quickly and it becomes ripe and ready for a fire to begin. So when we talk about tips for bushfires, we really want members of the public to be aware of the fact that you need to take cognizance of your property. Start with your home. Start by cutting a fire trace around your property. When I say a fire trace, I mean you need to have an exclusion zone where you cut the vegetation against your fence line, at least 5 feet away from the fence line, all the way down to the dirt so that there is nothing to burn.
Ah, okay. So it's not just about making sure it stays watered.
Exactly.
It's about clearing a path.
It's clearing it because obviously fire needs 3 components to actually exist. It needs oxygen, it needs an ignition source, which is the heat from the dry season, and obviously the burning vegetation, which is the material that can actually burn. But there are some other telltale signs that you can use to sort of protect yourself. Think about a tree or vegetation that grows on the fence line and then gets onto the eave of your property.
Exactly.
Or even leaves that fall into the guttering. These accumulation of waste material or even bothersome material can actually ignite in a dry season situation.
So the dried leaves basically become catalysts for fire.
Exactly, they become the fuel of the fire in essence.
Now, people who purposely set fires, let's say for clearing of land or whatever reasons like that. I mean, all these things would help to make sure it's as safe as possible.
Yes.
But is there a fine attached to people who may be setting bushfires?
Right, first and foremost, during the bushfire season, which begins from the 1st of December of the previous year, 2023, and runs all the way to June 30th, 2024, this is the fire season under the Agricultural Fires Act. You have to apply to the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service for a permit to burn outdoor or to set outdoor fires. So if you're clearing land, you're preparing for construction, you're doing anything of the sort, you seek that approval from the fire service. Without doing so, you run the risk of, on summary conviction, having a 6-month imprisonment and a fine of $20,000.
Good to know. And that goes for if you're lighting something in your backyard or if you're clearing construction.
Right.
Both.
So let's differentiate between your little domestic fires.
That's what I want to make sure we understand the difference.
So someone that is working within their confines of their property with, and you set a little fire with your barrel and so forth, that's a small amount. You're still supposed to apply for a permit. So I'm saying to you, apply for your permit, because if anything happens and it escapes your property and goes beyond your fence line, you're going to be held liable.
Yeah.
So the thing is to err on the side of caution.
What is the price of that permit?
It is only $10 TT. Still.
That's for the domestic ones or that's
that
for
is
all?
For anyone.
For real?
It is $10 TT. And so the key here is you're going to get advice from our fire guardians who come on board every 1st of December of the previous year, and they stay with the fire service for that period. Now, they work with us annually up until that June 30th period, and they go out to the property, they visit, they determine what is the amount of material that needs to be burned, what is the size of the land clearing, and they will also work with you to determine how long of a period you're going to need to burn the material, because you're going to get intervals with which you can burn.
Okay.
Of course, you're not going to burn at high temperature periods during the day. That would be like a midday period.
Yeah.
And you're not also going to burn at high wind. So normally that window is later in the afternoon around 5 p.m. all the way down to like around 6:30. You burn within that window and you burn smaller amounts that is controllable. You have water on site, and you make sure you have more than one person in attendance so you can render assistance if needed.
So if it is that you are, like, I'm seeing people who are doing this and they don't follow those precautions,
Yes.
right? So I'm not saying the water wrong. I don't even know if they have a permit. Who do I report this to?
You report it to the fire service or to the police. We're both equipped, and even any forest ranger, any forestry person, that officer is responsible for these types of activities, and we all sit on what is called the county fire council, and we are responsible now for ensuring that persons are held accountable for that. And I know that persons have been brought before the court for matters such as this. All right, so we want to make sure that the public is aware of that.
Yeah.
And while I'm touching on that, I also want to let you know that even though it's bushfire season, house fires can be, come about as a result of bushfires.
Well, exactly, because if you don't have, for example, the same thing you mentioned with the fire trace around your house, if you don't have the things in place, if you're not cleaning out your gutter, and then you leave a chance for things to ignite and catch your whole house on fire.
Exactly.
All right. Now, what about a bushfire plan?
All right. So a bushfire plan is you having that cognizance of, hey, this is the bushfire season. We need to start the cleaning process.
Okay.
Start cleaning up around the property, start preparing. If I know that I want to have clear trees and there are excess leaves and so forth around the property, I need to get that in place and put my plan together. What am I going to do if there's in the advent of smoke? And when I think about bushfire, I'm also thinking about the fact that we have hospitals, home for the aged, schools, nurseries, where and a lot of smoke is going to affect these very sensitive public.
Yeah.
So that is also part of your plan. Plan for those who are not able to withstand the effects of a bushfire.
Yeah, because the smoke is one of the most dangerous parts. Yeah.
That's right.
Now, whenever we see bushfires, like on the highway, for example,
Yes.
I mean, I in my head, I picture people smoking and they throw the cigarette out the window, and that starts a bushfire. That's just my picture in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know how true or how probable it is.
It is.
It is probable.
It is one of
All
the
right.
causes. It is one.
So then, if we see bushfires on the highway, do we drive through the smoke? Is there danger in that as well? Because we do it all the time, but is that dangerous? How should
All
we
right,
proceed?
so depending on the magnitude of the
Right.
bushfire, it's going to affect you. But the guidance that we give is, one, continue. You may go through the area. Stay in your lane. That's not the time to change lanes. Because, again, the vehicle that is at the side of you is going to continue in their straight path. So you slow slightly, but you maintain and you go through, and you also be cautious. If the bushfire is way above what you can see in terms of visibility, at some point in time you're going to get through that bushfire. But we're asking members of the public, be cautious when you're beginning to approach those areas on the highways. And the thing is, the highways is what we can see. I'm so concerned about even the forested areas and all of those sensitive wildlife that we have in Trinidad. And of course, bushfires can also lead to desilting, and you get the rivers filling, and then we have the rainy season and the flooding. So it has an effect that goes farther than just the bushfire that you can see.
Now, is it possible for bushfires to start without human engagement or interaction at all?
It is possible. And again, this comes into play where we discard broken glass, we discard materials that can magnify the sun's ray, and then that can in turn, just as when we played with a magnifying glass when we were small, it's a similar type of situation that can happen. Okay. All right, so we're asking persons, we need to keep cleaning and keep our areas, clean, and that helps with the process as well. One last thing I want to mention. I know that some persons have asked me, what about the land that is next door to you and there's no owner and the bush is growing overboard? And so you have to report that to your borough or municipal corporations,
right,
and allow them to come and visit so that they can take the necessary precaution, because they too have a part to play in this whole keeping the areas clean. All right, to minimize the effect to you.
Of course, so you have to be our neighbor's keeper. We have to watch out for yourself. Watch out for yourself, really.
Yes.
You're looking out for yourself in that regard. But you mentioned house fires. Parents oftentimes have these things lying around the house that can start fires. Yes. What are some of the things that they should be cautious of leaving lying around, or that children can access and happen to play with and cause fire?
Well, definitely, I always have to remind persons, especially if you're a smoker, you need to keep your smoking paraphernalia away from children. Matches, smoking paraphernalia, and any item, even a battery, a 9-volt battery, that can cause an ignition source. So you have to know how you're discarding of those items as well, and how you're securing those items. Protect your children. And this is also an opportunity for me to speak about fire extinguishers, which can save lives.
And alarms. How important is the alarm
And
in
the
the house
smoke
as
alarms
well?
in your homes. I will always reiterate that whenever I come on the program. Please, members of the public, purchase a smoke detector, battery operated, get it into your properties, and at least one 10-pound dry chemical fire extinguisher, what we call an ABC fire extinguisher. Just recently, we had a fire in Central where a vehicle was involved, and the vehicle was in the garage, and it caught the entire building on fire. Very, very unfortunate situation, but one 10-pound dry chemical fire extinguisher could have stopped the fire right in the compartment of the vehicle. Critical.
Wow. And that's things we don't really think about.
Yes.
You mentioned bushfires being able to destroy houses just
Yes.
based on proximity. And now we have car fires that are able to also do the same thing just
Exactly.
based on proximity.
Exactly.
So it's just best to be as careful as possible. Prevention is always better than cure.
Definitely.
All right. What about the general air quality during this season? I mean, if we have more bushfires, does that reduce our air quality?
Well, definitely, it's particulates that get into the air, and I don't want to go down the whole environmental side of it because you know that is exactly what's going to happen. And it affects our visibility. And then we already have the phenomenon of the Saharan dust.
Just double.
And you see it, you naturally see it, and that's why after rainfall, you see such a clear sky.
Yeah.
But before that, there is visibility issues. And so those persons who are sensitive, I always speak about the public who has asthma, persons who suffer from pollen and all of these other issues. You want to make sure that the particulates in the atmosphere is at the lowest level. And we can avoid that by just trying to be our neighbor's keeper and only burn when it's necessary and burn when you have acquired the necessary permit.
Remind them where they go to acquire this permit again, please.
So you can go to any headquarters of the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service. We have in each division, in the Tobago Division, Scarborough, you have in Port of Spain, you have Arima, you have also in the Central Division, Shogunas Fire Station, San Fernando Monrepo, you have, and of course Point 14 and Mayaro. You approach these stations and the officers there would guide you as to what is the documentation necessary to apply. It's not a difficult process. So you can acquire a permit within a few days. All right, once we verify what you're going to burn and we have given you the necessary precautions, they are more than willing to issue the permit to you.
And you said that they have to come to the house or the establishment.
They must visit the location to verify and to also give the necessary precautions.
Okay.
All right?
All
So
right.
we're here for that particular purpose.
I mean, I feel like we get plenty of information there. And
definitely.
if all you're starting bushfires, still on any licks, that's all. It's as simple as that. And you wouldn't get licks, you would get 6 months imprisonment or a fine of $20,000. That's what you would really boil down to. Thank you so much for joining us this morning yet again.
Always a pleasure.
And for sharing the information. Ladies and gentlemen, Fire Prevention Officer Jude Rogers just sharing some information on how we can prevent bushfires during this dry season. We take that quick break and we come back with more on the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.